It's the worst of the CBC for November 4th, 2019, the show where I watch the CBC so you don't have to. Okay, first things first. Breaking news, drunk Auntie Elizabeth May has resigned as leader of the Green Party. Good riddance. She has gone to work on her second career as the vice president of the Omar Carter fan club. Now, I've given my views on why Elizabeth May screwed up this election by not presenting herself as an adult in the room, just making ridiculous social justice. We need a land acknowledgement every 2 minutes, blah, blah, blah. Not being an adult in the room. She could have really undercut the NDP with Jagmeet Singh, who is also equally as incompetent. Now, I hate the Green Party because they're a single-issue party that doesn't even take their single issue seriously. They are all about the environment, yet they do not even want to have a conversation about nuclear power in somewhere in Ontario. Like, I can understand if people in California along those fault lines don't want it, but here in Ontario, if we can't talk about at least new thorium reactors, then you're not taking the environment seriously. So, good riddance. Now, the top story today on the CBC, and the worst covered story, is the safe third-party agreement with the United States. I don't know how this got to court, but this is Canada, and it is going to court of, can we still consider the United States a safe third party? And this was covered so horribly, but it's in a Toronto court. They're going to be hearing of, can we cancel the safe third country agreement with the United States? This would mean that you could basically be an immigrant from Mexico, and then you can say, I feel like I'm under threat from America and ICE and these detention facilities, so I'm going to claim refugee status in Canada because I'm a Mexican scared of America's process, and I have, like, you know, the gang violence back in Mexico. It's ridiculous. You can't do it. It would have so many problems. One, opening up the border. Now, I was furious at the way they were covering it because they only gave the sort of the different groups, and they sort of made these emotional appeals about different refugees there, and they said, oh, and the government disagrees. I'm like, at least the government disagrees. That's some saving grace. But that's all they say, and the government doesn't want to do this, so the government's fighting it. That was explain the government thing. And then, okay, I've watched the whole hour, and then they did that again as a top story, and they were expanding on it. So the story's growing and growing and growing. So they're really pushing this. So you can tell when they expand it. And they said, okay, we're going to get an immigration person in here in 15 minutes to explain the merits of each side. And I'm like, all right, I'll stick around for that if this is going to be the top story. And the lawyer, the law professor they brought in from U of T was ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Now, she was this was like, I was taking notes on all the bias things she said, but then if I had to do that, I would just have to read you an entire transcript of the interview. It was so insane. Basically, okay, she made the case of, we need a safe third country agreement because America isn't safe, and blah, 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 it's ridiculous. Then they ask her, okay, what are the government's point of view on this? And then she just kind of said, well, the government's going to argue that the human rights abuses in detention centers, the racism and blah, blah, and like just she basically said all these evil things that America is doing, all this CNN propaganda, the government's going to have to say that evil is okay. Not in those words, but it's like, okay, are we really having a conversation in as adults of whether or not America has the right to detain illegal immigrants? Right? If you have to talk about this every couple of months. If you cross into America illegally, you will be detained. 1/3 of people crossing in with kids are not biologically related to those kids. Children are being trafficked through the border. You know, the highest rates of sexual abuse in the world are young women trying to get into America illegally because smugglers and coyotes are not the nicest people. We have to have this conversation over and over and over again. If you apply to entry in the legal port of entry in the United States, you're not detained and you're not separated. The only people who are detained are people crossing in illegally at non-registered crossings. And to say this would be a human rights review is ridiculous in the extreme. But the Canadian courts are the Canadian courts. The Canadian courts work on that's our law. No, I'm serious. And the example I always give is when Canada legalized euthanasia. Let's take your personal opinion on euthanasia out of it because it's a complicated issue and we can respect all sides. The government ruled that assisted suicide or assisted dying, whatever we want to call it, is legal because the ability to not kill yourself violates your fundamental right to life. Not being able to die violates your right to live. An obscene ruling, okay? Just in the face of it. Now, we can all have complicated views on euthanasia. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that particular ruling from the Supreme Court is ridiculous. Not being able to kill yourself violates your right to life? What? Okay. So I have no faith in the Canadian courts to uphold any sort of logic or reason. It's just going to be, it's roll the dice what's going to happen. And, you know, the CBC is saying, if we get rid of the safe third country, never mind angering the Americans. oh, it's going to make more legal and safe entry to the country. Okay, and here we're going to add in the biggest omission too, because what you hear a lot from the left, and I heard this from, a crazy NDP supporter that is no longer in my life, thank God, is, I'm sure you've heard this, the conservatives just get people to vote against their own interests by using immigration to scare fears of racism, right? This is what the left says. It's in everyone's best interest to just vote for the left because we give you all these things, right? And the only reason people vote conservative is because they're racist or scared of brown people or whatever. It's obscene. We have an immigration minister that has written a letter that we found leaked that said that the current immigration levels are unsustainable. We have refugees, fake refugees living in hotels on the government dime. All our homeless shelters are full to capacity, and homeless veterans are being turned away because we have migrants all in the homeless shelters. We're way over capacity. We're overstrained. We don't have the resources. We don't have the space. It's not working, all right? We need to sort of curb these levels, and the dangerous levels that Trudeau brought in are bad. Okay. Here's where this is a fundamental lie, right? Because of the increase in illegal immigration and or whatever you want to call it, the borders of Roxham Road, who gets hurt by this the most? Is it the upper middle class white girls who are telling you that only racists vote conservatives and it's in everyone's best interest to vote NDP? They're fine with this. Right? They don't get hit first. The people who get hurt the most by these crazy immigration policies are the people at the lowest rung, right? It's the homeless people who literally can't get into the shelters anymore, and they're left in the cold to die. Then it's the, lower class people who are maybe struggling on unemployment benefits. Now the money goes to another place. They don't get money. They fall into the homeless category, right? They get knocked down a level, right? So it's really everyone on the lower rungs of society is getting pushed down by the influx of resources and migration, which are ruining the programs used to help these people. And again, I'm not saying the immigrants are ruining it. I'm saying the government is ruining this by bungling the immigration. Right? So who gets hurt the most by this? It's the people in the lowest rungs of society's ladder who get hurt the hardest by, these far left policies. And then far left people say, I can't believe that people who aren't rich would vote against their own interests, right? The conservatives, the only people who vote conservatives are billionaires and racists, right? It's a ridiculous lie. And the fact that they fake covered the opposing argument it's like a billion Rosemary Bardens. It's like a billion hot burning Rosemary Barden faces flashing in front of your eye. So, I mean, yeah, okay. So on the Rosemary Barden scale, 1 billion out of 10. 1 billion out of 10. We are actually having a conversation in the national media and in the Canadian courts treated with a serious levity of, is having laws illegal? That is basically what this boils down to. Canada is having a conversation now, and our legal system might have to decide, and we don't know the outcome because the legal system is crazy. Is having laws illegal in Canada? What a country. Oh, because it's 2019.